I am particularly pleased to be here on this panel stage for the second time. The last time was 2007, and the motto of the ITB Hospitality Day was "Stars and Bloggers. Our guests, the better reviewers." Back then, I was responsible for Holiday Check. I was in the panel. Someone else was the moderator. Moreover, there were 3 people representing the hotel sector. But there was no blogger, although the title was Stars and Bloggers. So today, we do have a blogger represented here on the panel, because the last time it was harshly criticized that there was no blogger. We also have a representative of the portals, of the websites, Global Market Liga, of TripAdvisor, Tom Breckwoldt. Ms. Zagermann is the blogger of the JustTravelers.com blog. Just fabulous, I learned, but it's travelers. Then there is Mrs. Schumacher, Vice President PR and Communication of Mövenpick. She is a PR professional from the hotel sector, represent the hotels here, and Benjamin Jost of TrustYou. This is someone who made a business model out of all these things. He's a technical pioneer, kind of, and he can answer questions regarding the future. What does the future hold in store? I've also been involved in the development, at least partially. I realized hotel reviews and how they developed as of 2005, and I realized at the beginning there were only very, very few hotels which were aware of user-generated content and its value. There were only a few who said, this is important to us. Most of them said, well, this is horrible. This will take away market share from us. The guests want to discuss this. This is dangerous. We need to make sure that this will be cancelled. But if you take into account the period of time between 2005 and today, you realize that this is quite surprising. It used to be a tool at the beginning that was very shocking, but it has become a matter of course. We do not need to discuss whether this makes sense or not. We do not need to talk about its existence or the future. It simply is there. It exists. Hotel reviews exist. And it is vital that people talk about this topic. They spread their information on the internet, and hotels have got used to this, and they even use it as a marketing tool. This is an important distribution tool because there's hardly anybody booking a trip without having retrieved information from the internet, and they simply ask other people. They search for hotel and holiday activity information on the net. And relevant business models were developed, TripAdvisor, for instance, and others. These are certain market players with a certain power in the market. You can't ignore them any longer. And then there are technical players such as TrustYou, which analyze hotel reviews, and they have got specific tools for the evaluation in semantic terms, and they thus can create the future. Mr. Breckwoldt, I would like to ask the first question to you, because TripAdvisor is a portal which has also radically changed the world, at least partially. You yourself started in the hotel sector. You did an apprenticeship as a cook. You started to work in a hotel. You were very successful as such. And then you started in the field of portals and e-commerce, and now you work for TripAdvisor. How can I put it? What is your hotel perspective? How have you managed this change or this switch over from the hotels to TripAdvisor? Were you skeptical at the beginning? What's your opinion today? Well, many years ago, possibly when you discussed this during the last panel, I was a little bit skeptical at the beginning about user-generated content and whether you can involve it and use it when it comes to finding the right trip service and the hotel. But today I can see that this has become part and parcel. Content is to be used by the users, not by the hotel owners. the users use this as inspiration when booking and when evaluating the trip. And this is something that users want to have. Mobile end terminals or terminals make it possible. I've got the app with me all the time because I've got my device with me. So we can see that even during the trip, information is being exchanged and shared. Pictures are being shared during the holidays. And along these lines, I believe that the recent development during the past years has been necessary and important. It's the voice of the user and the community that is now being heard and has become an important part of the process. Do you think in the future this role will be increased? Will it be used even more, for example, in distribution? Yes, definitely. What we can see is that the numbers are growing. In our company, for example, just before the ITB, we had 150 million reviews and opinions. We are very proud of this. 260 million unique users every month on our websites around the world. So we can see that the demand is increasing. And this holds true for other sectors, not only the hotel sector, but restaurant sector as well. For example, user-generated content is becoming more and more essential for booking decisions, and it has an influence on these decisions. So we're right at the beginning only. It's normal, ordinary people, guests who went to hotels who write about this. And I think we all agree that this is a subjectivity which plays a major role. Hotels are made for ordinary people, so ordinary people should write about it. But there are professionals who are bloggers. Mrs. Zagermann, are you the better guest because you are the professional? Are you the one who knows more about the hotel and can thus write a better hotel review in your blog? Well, if you are familiar with hotels and you've got an insight, if you spend several nights in hotels, not only once a year, say, then you know hotels in a different way. You know the process from a hotel. You know a normal procedure. You know if it's a coincidence that something didn't work out well, or if it's systematic, you can assess this better. And if you've got more information, you can judge on that better, and thus you can write a better review. So, say a well-founded review. If you read reviews yourself, do you read it from a different perspective? Yes, I do. Whenever I read these statements, well, I think you can tell rather quickly if a guest is rather nitpicking, or if he's or she's more open-minded and underwent great effort so as to write a balanced opinion in a review. And I think if you're familiar with the topic, you realize that rather quickly. And I think it's quite interesting to be able to evaluate this. Mrs. Schumacher, you represent the other side, that is the ones who get the reviews. Bloggers and normal guests write about you, bloggers such as Mrs. Zagermann. What is your estimation? What do they know about the subject matter? Well, let me start as follows. I remember many years ago when all this started. I worked in a company, and at the beginning we ignored this. Someone dares to write something about us, and maybe this is not even positive. We will just simply ignore it. And it is quite exciting to see the recent development in the field of social media as well. You need to see it in an integrated perspective. We've got Facebook, Twitter, etc. Customers and guests express themselves. Hence, it has become more important in the hotel business as well. I can't tell you when it was exactly, but I suppose about 5 or 6 years ago that one realized, wow, this is a certain size. It is important. And you mentioned it. There's the link to distribution and e-commerce. We can't ignore it any longer. We need to act professionally. And there has been a shift in terms of communication as well. It is no longer that we say, dear customer, look, this is our information and we want you to know this. It's rather the guests deciding on what kind of information they want to have. So customers have become more self-determined. And this is why hotels need to make sure that they know about their online reputation. They need to enter into a dialogue with their guests. Benjamin Jost, I would like to ask a question to you. What do customers say? There are so many information. There's so many information. If you evaluate this information, what is the most important criticism? What do people get upset about, and what are they most happy about? Well, the colleague from TripAdvisor already mentioned it. Most reviews are positive ones. This is something that you can say. It's not just that in the internet people only moan and complain. Approximately 80% of reviews are positive. What is being said? Well, a lot is being written about service. This is something I can definitely say. We know that last year there were lots of reviews about the internet, speed of the internet, the costs of the internet, internet that is not free of charge, where you can create correlations and say, well, if there are so many people complaining about the internet, then the average review will decrease in terms of quality. So maybe I, as a hotel owner, should provide free of charge internet services to the customers. What else? We've realized that, especially in Germany, there was a decrease regarding food and beverage. There were more complaints about food and beverage in the hotels than before compared to Asia. There was an increase with regard to food and beverage. Food and beverage in Asia, plus 10% better reviews, and it's minus 3%, so a drop in quality in Germany. And these are the things that we see when carrying out analysis throughout the internet. Tom Breckwoldt, generally speaking, you are the global market leader, and as such, would you say that there are differences between what the Germans complain, what the Americans complain about? This is what the Brazilians like, this is what the Chinese dislike. Can you see a trend? Yes, sometimes there are some categories, also with the view to detail. Germans, for instance, travel for different reasons often. We can see this in the inland market. There are a lot of business travelers who write on TripAdvisor, and they thus use different criteria. But, well, generally speaking, as we've already heard, the global average is very similar to the international average. There are 5 possible points, and we are being marked with 4 points on average internationally. There are some changes in the new markets. We can see this. For instance, India or Brazil. Reviews are an essential tool to them so as to get information ahead of the trip. People don't make bookings without this. And a lot of people see whether they have received an answer. So is respect being shown? Is an answer being given? And we can see that there the entire issue is much more important compared to the classical markets that have kind of grown into the situation. So people who have grown up with this, it is indispensable that there are hotel reviews and that they get answers as well. Mrs. Zagermann, what do you think? What are the most positive and negative points? What do you get upset about, and what are people happy about in hotels? Well, I wrote an article about it. I think it's terrible when the hotel staff puts the blanket underneath the mattress, so that I have to retrieve the blankets from underneath the mattress. This is something that I am aware of. Apart from that, what is very important to me, and this has been mentioned, is the entire service issue. If the hotel is good, and if the service, however, is bad, then it's a significant difference, and vice versa. If a hotel at first glance might not be too good, but the service is great, then to me this is much more important. And with regard to many hotels, I think that you focus on this, that the staff has been trained, that the staff is being friendly, the service must be good, that the guests get the impression, yes, I'm well taken care of. Mr. Schumacher, we heard about what people get upset about in hotels. What are you irritated about with regard to hotel reviews? Well, in principle, I have to say we take these statements seriously. We take a look at them. Maybe the expectations are not the same. They don't meet the actual reality. And, well, if you go into the details, maybe this is not in a good relation with what actually happens. These can be small details. A lot of people write a huge essay, and you're wondering, wow, they've got a lot of time so as to write all this down, or else the person was really very angry about the service. But you need to take a look at this. Is it very subjective, or is it proven by facts? Can we say, okay, we can accept these points of criticism because they are important? We've mentioned service is the most important subject. Sometimes it can be the position of the hotel, or maybe some people complain about not enough food on the buffet table. But these are just small details, and you can't all lump them together. I don't want to say that we are irritated. We like criticism if it is underpinned by facts and figures, instead of simply putting kind of a cloud into the room that we can't grasp. Then we don't really have any possibility of grasping this and actually acknowledging where the failure and the fault is. We also use this as a tool so as to question ourselves and to find out about our own weaknesses, and maybe there are certain things that slip through our fingers without us even realizing, and this is why we use this as a tool. So you use this as a quality management tool to just exaggerate now, or you gear your quality management towards this. So what do you think about the fact that a lot of hotels actively endeavor to get good reviews? They don't really hire agencies so as to manipulate, but hotels, for instance, say, okay, there is a competition you can join if you write a good review, or you get a dinner free of charge if you write a good review. It's kind of a grey zone, and you have this these reviews that are no longer realistic. Is this still a tool then? There are lots of discussions. There are a lot of people in favor of this. We, as a company, decided not to do that. We do not have any incentives in this regard, because, as I said, it's part of our quality management. And we want to have reviews that are as neutral as possible. If I give incentives, this will not be the case. We know the cognitive distortion. The guests are influenced, or would be influenced, in a positive way. Each company needs to take their own decision. The more reviews you've got, the more advantages you get. But then this is no longer part of quality management. Then the goals are different ones. So it's actually a distribution tool then, yes, exactly. But may I say something? I can't really quite agree with this. It's no longer grey zone for us. In any case, not in the way you've explained it. If the hotel says, if you write a good statement, you'll get an incentive, this is possible, of course, to say, as a sign of saying thank you to you, if you take the time to write down a review, be it a positive or negative one, then it is acceptable to kind of reward this, to thank you for it. But it must not be linked to only a positive statement, of course. This would not be acceptable, and we wouldn't do it and accept it. Benjamin Jost. You, as a company, TrustYou, are also responsible so as to make sure that the hotels can look into this topic across all websites and portals. And it should be simple. They want to get a good overview. What do people like about my hotel? Where am I positioned compared to the competitors, etc.? Do all hotels take it as seriously as Mrs. Schumacher says in terms of quality management, and are they willing to pay for such a tool? Well, I remember the panels 4 to 5 years ago where we were sitting here and people said, well, we will sue them, holiday check, etc. But these times are bygones. We suppose that between 50,000 and 70,000 hotels around the world use these types of tools, such as ours. This is quite a lot, not all the hotels that you can book online, but nonetheless. And they're all willing to pay. We do not simply go somewhere and show a tool, show everything that you can do with it, and say, yeah, I want, and they say, I want to have it, but I don't want to pay for it. But these are not the types of discussions we have. Now, the $64,000 question with regard to all this is the following one. Everything is being faked. It's falsified. It's not a problem to upload a falsified review, especially in the open portals such as Holiday Check or TripAdvisor. Everybody can write a statement there. So a lot of people in the sector are of the opinion that all this is not representative. It's not real. It's not genuine. There are manipulations taking place there. How do you deal with this reproach of manipulations? And how many manipulations are there really? Well, one thing is absolutely vital. Credibility is our most important asset on TripAdvisor. As many people might know, TripAdvisor is not a booking platform. We are a review platform. That is, this is the center, the community is in the limelight. In other words, credibility is our most important asset, and this is what we're trying to improve. We've got a double secured system. We do have a computer-based check for the reviews. And if there are any inconsistencies, we've got hundreds of content specialists who will closely examine the reviews in detail. It is important for us, though, also to get the feedback from the community. Recent studies have just shown that more than 90% of users in Germany and abroad as well said what we read in on TripAdvisor is also what we find actually in the locations, and this shows us that the credibility is very high. Our community is constantly increasing. I mentioned it's 260 million unique users per month. They wouldn't exist if you didn't get the value back, if this value didn't exist. But you mentioned the self-image, you described it, the added value for customers, and what is being said in the media, especially during the past 2 years. In public television or in private television, it is said 20, 30 or 40% of hotel reviews are falsified. But this is kind of two different images or pictures now. What is the correct figure now that I need to assume? Is it 1% or is it 40% or what is the number? Well, I think you can't find the truth as such. It is a subjective experience that is being described there. And as I said, we build on what the community gives back to us, what is being reflected by the community. And it clearly says what we find there is what corresponds to reality. I would like to explain the context. When talking about reviews today, we're not talking about Holiday Check and TripAdvisor only today, maybe Facebook as well. No, today, every booking platform has integrated review platforms. If I use HRS or Expedia or others, I will find these types of statements and reviews as well. And if you take a look at the data, Expedia, HRS, Booking.com, TripAdvisor, Holiday Check, you'd say, well, in one case, it's always statements that you can issue after you've made a booking. So the likelihood of falsification is very low. You would have to pay a lot of money so as to make many bookings, so as to write anything at all. And in the other cases, you could do it in the community. And here you can see some deviations. That's true. It also depends on the number of reviews. If you've got a few only, then the deviations are really significant. And if you've got a lot, the spread is much smaller. So I suppose that the truth is to be found somewhere in the middle, and you need to take into consideration the number of reviews for the hotels. This moves me on to the next question to Mrs. Schumacher. Do you have trust in hotel reviews, or do you rather believe in what the media say, that there are a lot of counterfeit or falsified statements? And if so, who would benefit from it? It should benefit the hotels, which do not want to be confronted with reviews. You say you don't have a problem with that at all. Do you have trust in these statements and sites? Yes, more or less, yes. We also carry out spot checks. And we click on the hotel so as to get an outline of the situation. We can tell whether it is correct or not. There can be mistakes being made. This happens, unfortunately, every now and again. It depends on how to deal with it as a hotel owner, but yes, I do have trust in it. I would like to give you an example. It wasn't a falsified review, but I was a little bit angry about it. I was wondering about the algorithms. Are they not working any longer? It was a hotel in Saudi Arabia, and they've got an alert function there. It was a totally disastrous review in a type of language that should be put on the index, actually. I was completely shocked. Other people were shocked as well. People went to hospital because they had food in this hotel. It was said in this statement. We were really shocked by these statements, and we looked into this. In a few hours' time, we found out that it was a guest who stayed in this hotel 2 years ago. So we were wondering, why does he put a post there 2 years after his stay in the hotel? How is it possible? Secondly, the person knew what happened on site. We could prove, yes, we did have this case. It happened. Guests had to go to hospital. They were administered to hospital due to toxic food, but they had never had any food in the hotel. The restaurant was found somewhere else later on, and all this was mentioned on the website in a terrible language. And I was really shocked about this being put online, that nobody had checked this, and we contacted TripAdvisor, and I have to say that it was withdrawn from the website within a few hours because we had facts against it, and we said this is not true. And I don't know why this guest, it was a lady, why this guest wrote this review on the site, but we were able to prove that facts were simply wrong. An opinion is something different, of course. Everybody has freedom of expression, of course, but we could give the proofs in terms of facts.
I'd like to come in on that, if I may. You try to indicate that there are two fronts whose position has become harsher. That is exactly our viewpoint as well. We are partners of the hotel owners, and this is what the example has just shown. We've got lots of different tasks that we've got to address at the same time. Therefore, we set up our management center in order to be able to deal with pieces of information that we've received from the hotels. We want to provide assistance and support. And if you use the tool appropriately, you can use it in order to get an extra benefit of it. It provides added value. But of course, mistakes are being made at the hotel level and on platforms as well, and we have got to take action jointly in order to correct them. Mrs. Schumacher, you are using hotel reviews. You're using the TripAdvisor, the holiday check, and TrustYou. So you're really involved in this business, so to speak. But you also cooperate with Mrs. Zagermann as a blogger. Now, one might say, well, what Mrs. Zagermann is writing is things that she was paid for. So hotels invite her to stay, and then she stays for a holiday and then writes PR. You know, this is sort of incentivized reviews. Mrs. Zagermann, this is probably a point of criticism that bloggers have been subjected to for quite some years. What's your take on that? Well, we hear this point of criticism quite frequently, especially when we cooperate with hotels or when we do our conventional research work. Well, you were invited? This is what we've been criticized of in the field of print journalism for a couple of years already, but this is how we proceed. You know, with regards to bloggers, we also said that credibility is the most important essence. For bloggers, this is even more important because without the readers, bloggers cannot survive. Without the readers, I cannot live any longer. You know, if my mum reads my blog, that's fine, but this is not how I can make profit and how I can position myself in the market. So therefore, the readers are of the essence. They have got to stay with me. They still want to listen to my voice. This is how I started off. I'm still credible. That's what I need to ensure. Then you know that you're not going to pull our leg here. You're not going to sell to us what you don't like yourself. But they really place confidence in me. A blog is something like a review portal in itself. I use reviews myself. But, you know, I give preference to a piece of advice that I get from a friend. If he tells me, well, the hotel is good, although the reviews are rather poor, I believe in the friend because I know the person very well. And if that person tells me, well, this is recommendable to you, then I believe him. And this is our task as bloggers. Blogs are very personal, and they are closely associated with us as private persons. People who read our bloggers on a regular basis know a lot about us as bloggers. And if people are saying, well, Yvonne is saying that this and that is something that she likes, they can have confidence in me, and they believe that this is actually true. You made mention of a particular point by saying, well, you also read reviews, but you place more confidence in a friend. This is probably attributable to the fact that the way in which we deal with reviews and how we come to terms with it can be rather painstaking. It might also be a rather time-consuming process. You know, there are millions and billions of sources which are currently being processed. It's not millions or billions, to be honest, but we look at approximately 250 sources. On average, we analyze 2.5 to 3 million hotel reviews on a weekly basis. 2.5 to 3 million new reviews per week that you process? Yes, exactly. So we're not using the conventional review platforms which are being used most frequently, but the conventional travel online agencies, Booking.com, Expedia, and so on and so forth. They have gained much more swing. They generate a lot of reviews themselves. So they produce a lot of content. So it's a content battle, a content armada. There are new players in the market. What does TripAdvisor do in trying to outperform TripAdvisor? Booking.com is a close partner of ours. At the current moment in time, we receive 90 new reviews on a minute basis, every minute. So growth is on the rise. And that is quite satisfying to us. We want to continue to grow. We will continue to grow. We think about user-generated content, which is already available. It provides extra value. We put the community first. This is of the essence. And this is also what our users honor and appreciate. Yes, you continue to grow. Every week, you will get 2.5 million new reviews. No, not at TripAdvisor, but in general terms, on the market as such. This is a good thing, but for the end users, it is not only of an advantage, because the more content there is, the more confusing it is. It's very difficult to analyze the content. What kind of solutions are recommendable? What kind of solutions do you use? Well, to us, it is most significant to use filters. We have observed that the users wants a healthy selection of content. Recent studies have shown that 6 to 12 reviews are being read on average. I think we need to take into account that the users, that our travelers, of course, need to be taken seriously. Our users know how to differentiate. We've got some extreme opinions which do not really get a lot of feedback. So we can place confidence in our users who know how to differentiate. What we are doing in order to process this huge amount of information is that we try to satisfy the requests and the requirements on the part of the users, so the content can be filtered out. If you want to go on a business trip today to Munich, you can filter out information which is relevant to business travelers. But if you want to go with your family on a holiday somewhere on the beach in 2 weeks from now, you can filter out the reviews which were written by families. And these are the kind of things which help the client filter out the information which is of relevance to him or her. So therefore, he gets access to the review which is most suitable for him or her. You know, is it enough to read 6 or 8 reviews since there are millions and millions of other reviews available? Well, the problem is you don't have a chance, do you? You don't have a choice. On the one hand, it's beautiful that you can use filters, but still, nonetheless, there are 250 reviews available that were written by different business travelers. You know, you've got endless lists of text and text and text on the next page. Again, you find sequences of text, text, text again. And then you've got to find your way through these sources of information in order to determine what the quality of a hotel is like. But there is no other solution available right now out there in the market. We've been cooperating with the suppliers, with the hotels for quite some time, and the hotels always told us, well, wouldn't it be great if you could summarize all these reviews in one way or another, because we can't read them all. Can't you produce a summary of these reviews so that we can see at one glance what's good, what's bad about service, what's good about breakfast, whatsoever? So we developed something like a meta review. Meta search and meta reviews were developed by us. We said, OK, let's do our work on behalf of the hotels. We do that anyway, so why not do it also in the interest of the clients? Now, we make these meta evaluations available to our partners, so such as EKRK, last-minute meta reviews, in order to be a bit more precise, are something like the snippets in the past. You know, in the past we used snippets where Dana Beach had 1,500 reviews, but then the snippet says, customers praise the good service, the food. What's bad is the Wi-Fi reception. Is that what the meta review is all about? Well, 90% of the clients praise the good food. Watch out for especially tasty cinnamon rolls, or the extremely delicious sushi dishes. So out of the whole plethora of all the reviews, we try to filter out what's best based on quantity, and we also try to define what the golden nuggets of a hotel are. What's particularly great at the hotel? Is it the rain shower? Is it the great restaurant with the great sushi dishes? We try to sort of filter it out so the client doesn't have to read through all the reviews, or 6 to 8 reviews for a particular hotel. And this is only a fraction of all the total reviews which are available. But, you know, you might not have the time to read all of them. We use a lot of mobile devices, and therefore time and space are reduced even further. Therefore, these mega reviews are even more important. We also see that when we look at our cooperation with ClipMix. The great majority of all the users use the summaries and not the overall reviews. It does make a lot of sense because it helps you save a lot of time. Mrs. Schumacher, do these meta reviews help you? Yes, most definitely so. It helps to see over a certain period of time how hotels perform and how the performance changes, especially if you also want to do good quality management. What are our strengths? What is particularly welcomed by the guests? Where is there room for improvement? On a regular basis, the manager in the field of operations address these subject matters, and they're really fighting hard for these reviews to be processed. But we set specific expectations of certain target groups. This is what you said, Mr. Breckwoldt, have other expectations, therefore they've got to read different reviews. But these mega reviews are not target group specific, are they? Well, you can also evaluate them for particular target groups. I only want to read the summaries of business travelers aged 25 to 35. Well, the data is available. Of course, we try to evaluate it all and try to come up with more specific definitions and more specific golden nuggets, but the trend is going into the following direction. Content is good, and we generate a lot of content because you might need it in order to draw the final conclusion at the end of the day. When you want to take your family on a 3 weeks vacation, then you might tend to read 3 more reviews. But if you go on a business trip to a specific destination, all you need to know is the hotel good? Does it have a gym? Does it have a pool? And is everything fine? Then you don't even want to read 6 reviews. I think a very important subject matter, which has not yet been mentioned, is the topicality. Information needs to be updated on a regular basis. How was the review last week? What happened 2 years ago is not that much of the essence. For the user, information needs to be updated. That's quite important. This is a criterion where the hotels really work on their information at TripAdvisor. They try to provide as many recent reviews as possible, but summaries or mega reviews are also of the essence, particular for hotels. We also offer that in our management center or with the help of our premium product business listings. Here you've got ample opportunities to find out where the users come from, who went to a particular website and left their review there, which nationality do they have. The users who consume the content should not be provided with mega reviews or summaries. We don't want to make that available because that's exactly what it all boils down to. This is why the issue is so popular right now. Leave it up to the user to decide what he or she wants to read. How deeply is he going to dig into the subject matter? I don't want anybody else to filter information out on my behalf. Recently, we've learned that some portals were seriously criticized because, they left out some good reviews or took some bad ones in. This is not what the user wants today. The user wants to be free to decide how to consume this information. And this is why the whole plethora of information that we make available via TripAdvisor is so successful. Yeah, but that's also a problem for the user. Because the user has got to browse through more than 9 websites in order to find the right hotel. Simplification can also be of help. Mrs. Zagermann, when you read a hotel review as a potential client, how do you receive it? How do you evaluate this sheer mass of information? I think the 4 to 6 line review is quite nice because it helps you quite quickly to form an opinion. But I think lots of different aspects need to be factored in, which make me decide whether I want to go to a hotel, yes or no. When I go to the website of a hotel and when I see that this hotel received TripAdvisor awards, then I think, oh, well, great. Now let me look up the reviews at TripAdvisor. But it's an interplay, it's an interconnection of lots of different factors, but I don't feel like reading all the reviews for 9 hours. That's too time-consuming, and sometimes I go by my gut feeling. Sometimes 6 reviews and the online presentation of the hotel and the blog contribution might help me form a decision. And then based on my gut feeling, I decide very quickly whether this would be suitable or not. You also spoke about the websites. For quite some time, the individual websites of the hotel were pretty much neglected, but they have assumed ever greater significance. Now, in the field of distribution, you try to encourage the clients to make bookings on your own website. This is part of Mövenpick's strategy, for example, isn't it? Yes. We also cooperate with TrustYou. And we also attribute trust scores. This is an accumulated version of the different reviews on different portals. Now, you might end up seeing one score, and the figure that you see at first out on is going to be made more precise. It's excellent, of medium quality, or poor. You know, at first glance, the customer sees the scores, and then if you click onto that particular button, you will find the review for the individual porters. This is a very important tool to make the whole system more transparent. It's not all that easy, by the way, because we, just like many other companies, are a management company. You know, we depend on the hotel owners and operators who have got completely diverging ideas about their real estate, their premise, their services. And we've got a lot of convincing to do when we tell them that this is necessary. We have not yet managed to convince each and every owner of the significance of these websites. We cannot tell the users where to read the reviews, but of course they are free to read them. Of course, our clients are enlightened and they want to know about the problem from other persons' angles. How about the distribution strategy of the hotels? To which extent should they be supported? Do you want to have your hotels who pay for the click as your clients, or would you rather like to cooperate with partners such as Booking? We want to give the users the best possible opportunity to form his or her own opinion. There are some users who feel quite comfortable on a platform, on a booking engine, where they might have stored their data already, where they can retrieve information very quickly without lots of distraction. But there are also some clients would think that it is of an advantage to make a booking directly. We support all these different features with the business listings. There the hotels are given the opportunity to establish a link to their own website. They can make a telephone number available and the like. Our main advantage is that we do not offer the possibility to make any bookings. We play a neutral role, and we offer the client as many possibilities as possible. I come from a hotel business myself, and of course I do see the added value in bookings being made directly, but the hotels have got to be willing to go along with that, because the development over the recent years did not emerge out of the blue. In the past, of course, some of you have been in the same situation. You've called up the hotel and asked for rates, but then the client said, well, if I book online, the rate is much better. Then you've got to make an online booking. When I worked in the hotel business, I realized that we are also partly responsible for the developments which have taken place in recent years. I think now it's good that we can balance the whole thing out a little bit better, but I think the hotel sectors have really got to look at their websites. Are they performing well? Is the information updated and topical? Is it of interest to the user that you're trying to attract? Can you turn the user into a client? I don't know whether all the hotels are ready for it. No, if you look at the power of Booking.com, for example, with regards to usability, then a lot remains to be done when you look at different hotel homepages. Benjamin, you've gained a lot of experience, haven't you? What's your take on that? Now, if you try to attract clients to look at the website of hotels, are they willing to convert? It always depends. Well, basically, they're willing to convert. But which additional tools can be used in order to make them convert much more quickly? All have got reviews on their websites. Everybody describes the hotel in a transparent fashion. But if you look at the websites, there's very little information that can be found. But there are more and more hotels which make this data available as well. There's one mystery. There's something that I don't understand at all, but I don't come from the hotel business, but nobody looks at the data, really. The hotels aggregate most of the reviews, but they just call it guest satisfaction survey. They don't call it a review, but they generate most of these evaluations, which are basically similar in content. You ask the clients to provide you with feedback. Are there any differences between the guest satisfaction surveys and the reviews? No, not really. You know, when I prepared myself for this panel, I looked at the different evaluations, and they are really rather similar. There might be some lies here or there, but basically the content is the same. We ask all our guests to participate in an online survey, which forms an integral part and parcel of our quality management, because this information is also forwarded to the directors of the hotels who've got to meet certain thresholds. Now, in a nutshell, let me come in on that. The hotels are using these reviews for hotel evaluations, but very few make this information available on their homepage. But it's unique content. It's relevant for running a web search. It helps you move up in the Google search, but hardly anyone uses that information because they look at things from an operational viewpoint. And we also spoke to big hotel chains, to people who said, well, I need my questionnaire with 150 questions because I know whether I can make more profit with a minibar, yes or no. But it's not relevant for your marketing strategy. You need a text, you need a score, you need to be credible. You need to cooperate with a third-party provider by saying powered by, not Mövenpick, but powered by, let's say, TrustYou, TripAdvisor, or whoever it might be. And then you can leave it aside and strengthen your distribution channels. Here, I think there's lots of improvement in the hotel sector, although, you know, there are some big players around who have already developed best practices. Back to the original question and the willingness to convert. Yes, we've got a very high hit rate, and we cooperate with a lot of hotels directly. If the hotels do their homework, we can be quite successful. If the hotels use the content, if the hotels listen to the users, if the hotels present themselves in a positive fashion online, then the conversion rate turns out to be quite high. And there's even one more further step that we can take. Convel published a study revealing that a better online reputation has a direct impact on turnover rates. And a score between 1 to 5. If you have an online reputation which is 1 point better, then your turnover can increase by 11.2%. That's quite obvious. So you do not only encourage the clients to convert, but you can even generate extra revenues. This also means that the pressure on the hotel sector and the part of the distributors is quite high, isn't it? I know it from some tour operators in the hotel business who are saying, well, that if you don't have a ratio check of 75%, we are not going to recommend you and we're not going to show your hotel in our catalog. Are you subjected to this pressure on the part of the tour operators or the distributors? Here, yes and no is the answer. Yes and no, because we need to differentiate between the conventional tour operators and the new ones. The conventional classical tour operators act independently. They select hotels differently. They've got their inspectors, they test the hotels, they've got their own categories for classification normally. I know of a Swiss tour operator who's got his own evaluation criteria, and out of the best possible hotels makes a very special selection. But we've got some conventional players with their own inspectors who are also working online. In addition to that, of course, we also have the only and exclusively working online agents who do not carry out quality tests. They use the review portals of others. Now, on the one hand, there are tour operators with a lot of market know-how, which have gathered a lot of experience and expertise in the course of years. And there are others who simply try to take stock at the moment, who are online tour operators. Although things are currently changing, well, change is ongoing. We are currently talking to online operators who also use reviews and reports in order to select certain hotels. It makes a lot of sense in the purchasing department, doesn't it? It couldn't be better. We have not yet spoken about one single player who is saying, well, dear hotel, we'll send our clients directly to you and we offer reviews as well. That's Google. In the mobile sector, Google is quite powerful. You can use Google Maps in order to look at the hotels, but then you will also only look at the pictures which are taken by Google users and look at the Google reviews only. Google is competing with you. How do you deal with that as TripAdvisor? Google is a very important partner to us. We cooperate very closely with Google, and we concentrate on our own community, which continues to grow. The number of clients continues to grow, and we receive regular hits from them. That's what we concentrate our efforts on, but we still cooperate with Google based on partnership. How do you view it, Mr. Jost? If you just look at sheer numbers, which significance does it have? Interestingly enough, the recent panels in recent years have always shown that if you ask the panelists, whom do you have to observe, what's the most important player in the market, who is the most respectful player in the market, or who are you most afraid of, then it was always TripAdvisor that was mentioned in recent years. Prior to that, 2 or 3 years ago, Google was mentioned. But, you know, the perception has changed. Google is not the threatening force any longer, which is the most powerful player in all the reviews and all the booking scenarios, but it's TripAdvisor. If I look at what Google has always done, if I look at how Google is positioned, I dare say, well, I believe, and you can also see that if you look at some of the initiatives which are taken by Google, if you look at search, if you look at Maps, and if you bring all the features together in a user experience, you will have to wait and see what comes out of it at the end of the day. I think the guys from Mountain View should not be neglected. Right, thank you very much. We've got 5 more minutes, and I would like to ask you, are there any questions in the audience? There's a great number of people in this room, and maybe we forgot to mention a couple of aspects. There is a request for the floor over there.
Hallo. Test? Ja. Vielen Dank erstmal.
Thank you for this interesting discussion. Mr. Breckwoldt said earlier that positive guest reviews are an influence and that TripAdvisor sanctions that. How do they? Was my first question. And the second question concerning Ms. Zagermann. Don't you think that you as a citizen, Ms. Zagermann, also receive a positive influence from the hotel, and that the way you are treated there is maybe a bit a favorable treatment when people know that you are a blogger? Yes, we have different possibilities, and if we know that reviews were made or influenced in a positive way, then those reviews are not going to be relevant for our platform. Maybe they won't get published. But if this kind of influence is being wielded, then we also act actively and work together with the hotels and try to avoid that. But first, somebody has to say, careful, there is active influence being wielded in this hotel. Somebody just dropped. Well, we have different possibilities to filter them, computer-based or community-based. We have lots of possibilities to find that out, and we treat every single occurrence. And yes, of course, sometimes I get a fruit basket or get offered a massage. But that's also a part of the hotel experience for me. And for my part, I think I can recognize if such a fruit basket is a normal occurrence or not. If something that I get offered as a normal amenity, or if it is a special favor that the regular guests don't receive. And of course, that is also something that influences my personal review. I know it's something that I got, but that is not normally on offer there. I have the sufficient expertise to make a difference there. So if Ryan Gosling were lying on my bed, that would be maybe convincing. A question to Mr. Schumacher. How do you choose bloggers? Because when I look at Ms. Zagermann, maybe that is not the target group for Mövenpick. I think Mövenpick is probably a bit older, target group a bit more mature. Oh, I think we have still a lot of communication to do. We have very sexy hotels, not only in Germany and Switzerland, but if you go to Dubai or Singapore or Cebu in the Philippines, I think the average age is 25 to 30 there, max. And public that is online savvy, we receive lots of reviews there. There are also some cultural differences when it comes to the importance of reviews, and I think that's also very interesting. Nevertheless, we are working with bloggers, and we make a difference, of course, between marketing campaigns that I don't mean here, but we also have bloggers who approach us, and then we check out the blog if it's something that corresponds to our themes and also to the destination. Do we have time for a last question? You said bloggers approach you, and I think that has been increasing in the last months and years. What are your criteria for accepting or refusing such an offer, or how do you analyze the blogs? Well, blogger relations are part of our communication strategy for many reasons. And like I just said, we look at the blog, we have direct contact to the blogger, we ask them what their target group is, how many visits and hits they have, how many direct users, and then we take a decision. And then, of course, it depends on the hotel at hand, on the destination, and we see whether we've got space for them or not. It's an individual decision. So new element, new media and marketing communication, just like hotel reviews have become a very important distribution element, they have also become a very important communication tool. I think we have to close now. Thank you very much for your attention. And for the full house, thank you for professional opinions at the panel.